Hey, what's up, guys? I'm back with another video. This time it's going to be a little bit different. I'm going to be kind of talking about my experience with my half marathon that I just did. So I just did the Indianapolis half marathon, Monumental. It happened, I just did it yesterday, or I guess November 3rd. That's when I did it. So, I mean, I might have this video uploaded today, I'm not sure, but yeah, I did it yesterday as of recording this video. And I just kind of wanted to go over like some of the things that I did to get this bad boy. So before I talk about like what I did, I want to say why I decided to do this. And I think it kind of starts from maybe like when I was in high school / college. So I never really had too much of an interest in running. I had some, maybe like in middle school, like I would like run the mile or something. I remember I did a 5K when I was like in 8th grade or something, and I really hated it. In high school, I just like avoided running. Like I remember I didn't even have to do the mile run anymore once I got into high school, so I kind of just avoided running. And in college, I started to run, just to like be healthy or whatever, but I would run on the treadmill or I would run outside, but it would only be for like a mile, you know what I mean? Only for like 8 minutes. But once I like graduated from college, I decided to, start running a little bit more, maybe, like 2 or 3 miles, just to kind of like push myself in, ways that, I had never been pushed before. And I just didn't really have a plan for that. I was just kind of like, I'm just doing this to kind of just to stay active, kind of. Because, I wasn't involved with any sports at the time. I just graduated from college. Not that I had any sports planned then, but I felt myself being like less active at the time. So when I moved to Louisville, about almost a year ago, which is kind of crazy, I still kept running. I did a lot of running on the treadmill, but it was really boring. But I realized I was starting to get a lot more interested in running. I'd run like 3, almost 4 miles. As I moved to this area, I wanted to meet new people. And this is also good advice for, meeting new people. So what I did is I joined a run club maybe about 2-3 months ago. And honestly, it was one of the better decisions of my life. Because a run club, it's so easy to meet people and to actually, like start, be motivated to run. You can meet people, but you can also be motivated to run because everybody else there is like really good runners, but you don't have to actually match them. If it's like kind of like a friendly run club, you can just run whatever pace you want and then socialize afterwards. So that's kind of what I did, to start off with. I only had like 4 miles as my max. And then, after the first couple days, it was probably like 5 miles max. And then it kind of just grew from there. So one thing I noticed about the club is that a lot of the runners had already been part of marathons, half marathons, 10Ks, 10 milers, all that sort of stuff. And, I remember like a lot of the times they would say, what are you doing next? What's your plan? Because like, it was kind of like you were like expected to basically, be part of like some sort of competitive run because, that's kind of like sort of a reason why you were part of the club, but you didn't have to, but pretty much everybody had. And I had never run competitively up until that point. I said I did a 5K earlier, but it wasn't actually like competitive. It was maybe like with 10 other people and it was kind of like a little bit of a school event thing, but it really wasn't that big of a deal. I had never really paid to run like competitively. And so I figured, like I was going to do one. At first I was like, maybe I could do a 10K, but like I could already run a 10K, a couple weeks in. And I figured I want to run something that I have never done before. That's my suggestion. When you run a half marathon, you should have never run, 13.1 miles before. You can have run 12 miles, maybe 12 and a half, but this should be like your long. This should be like your record. Because like this is supposed to be a special experience, and that was for me. And getting this, I would run maybe like 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday. And then on Saturdays, I try to get a couple people to run with. Maybe we'd brunch afterwards, but, it would just be, just to motivate me to run, right? To start off with, it was only like 3 to 4 miles, but I slowly built it up to like 5 or 6. Each week I wanted to run slightly longer, so maybe like a quarter of a mile longer than I actually did the previous week. Just something like really small, I just wanted to make sure like I passed a certain point that I normally didn't pass, because usually we'd run the same routes. And, so then, you'd see the same landmarks and you'd be like, oh, maybe I'll just go a little bit further today and then, come back, from there. As I kept going, I started learning more running techniques. Basically, I learned about cadence, step count. There's really no set strategy, however you run is kind of how you naturally run. But like I looked up tips on YouTube, the whole, pretending your head's kind of on a string type thing while you're running, having like a little longer strides when you're basically getting tired. Basically, you kind of want to make longer strides, but kind of slower cadence. So like stepping, you're not stepping as much, basically. And so I also learned about slowing my pace down, but not stopping my running if I ever got like tired. So whenever I was getting tired, I would start breathing through my nose, and that would slow down my pace that way. I also bought new shoes. I didn't get any like special shoes. I think next time I will. I just I bought some like Nike running shoes, which is fine too. They fit me pretty well and they feel good. But I started to realize, my old shoes, they were pretty crappy. They had holes in them. I shouldn't have been running in them. And so I bought new shoes, and it was a good investment because it really helped out in terms of my running technique. About a month before I did my half, I decided I wanted to do, a half marathon before the year ended. And this was back in like early October, late September. But I figured since, it gets pretty cold here in, the Midwest-ish area, I figured I was going to have to do one at some point in November. And the one here in Kentucky that was in town was in like, mid-October. And I felt like I still didn't have enough time because at that time, like in late September, my max was probably like 6, maybe 6.5 miles. And I was like, that's not enough time. So I signed up for the Indianapolis half marathon, Monumental, about a month before. And I'm glad I did that because the ticket prices keep rising, as you get closer to the marathon. And usually about a month before, the ticket prices hit their max. So I was able to get maybe like a $15 discount by doing it a month early. It was like 90% sold out. So especially for the bigger marathons, you definitely want to apply early. Now I want to talk about like the actual marathon itself, like right before, people say like carb loading, all that sort of stuff. When you're carb loading, what I've learned is that you can't just do it all in one night. So they say, to eat a lot of carbs. So like rice, potatoes, tortillas, that sort of stuff. And it can't just be like cookies or something. It's got to be like something maybe grainy or something, like something, that's dense, carb dense. And you don't want to just do it the night before. You want to do it at least, 3 days beforehand, just for dinner, just get yourself used to, having like carb dense food. And so that's kind of what I did. I was eating like a lot of tortillas, like 3 days before, the nights before. Also, I had my last run 3 days before my actual half marathon. Now, they say you should rest a little bit more than that, but I would say, you just want to make sure, you're ready in terms of like your pace and your breathing. So you don't want to injure yourself. You could run maybe like 6 miles or something. I did about 6 miles like 3 days before, just to make sure that I was in good shape, in terms of breathing, in terms of like my, knees, being ready, not sore or anything, just ready, ready to like take on that beating basically. So when the actual weekend of the marathon came, so on Friday, I actually had to get my bib number. So sometimes marathons, they'll make you can't get your bib on the start date. That's usually for like bigger marathons, bigger half marathons, that sort of thing. But for this one, you needed to get it the day before. And so that's what I did. I did get it the day before. So I went up to Indianapolis that Friday, and, I stayed, I grabbed my bib, like carb loaded, stayed overnight, and then the race actually started, the next day. So at the actual start of the race, I wasn't sure like when to like show up. So I probably showed up maybe an hour before the actual like start of the race. And I feel like I should have like started a little bit before then because I had to get like parking, and that took a while. And also I had to get my bag checked. I got my bag checked at like 7:55. So like I basically had to like run, and the start of the race was at like 8 o'clock. I didn't actually start at 8 because it was like a wave start, but I had to like kind of like rush back to get. So I already was starting to run right before I actually started. So you kind of want to give yourself some extra time before you actually start the half. So now we get to like the actual race itself. At the start of the race, I basically, it's kind of a wave start. So there were 5 waves, and based on your expected marathon finish time or half marathon finish time, that's where you would be placed. And basically, I said I would finish the half marathon in like between 2:15 and 2:30. That was a pretty conservative estimate. I'll tell you guys my end result at the end, but it was a pretty conservative estimate. But I just wanted to make sure I wasn't in like this, wave 1 or something when I shouldn't have been. So I was like wave 3 actually, wave 3 out of 5. We started off walking, so we walked up to the start line, and then basically your bib has like a tag, so like it doesn't matter like where you are in the wave. Once you cross that start line, then it starts. So once I crossed the start line, I started running. The thing was, like, I couldn't actually run that fast or that far really quickly because the crowd was so big, and like the road was so narrow that I couldn't actually do anything. Like I could do something, but like I was running at like a 9:30, 10-minute pace because there was so many people, and it was hard to like really just like, weave through them. So about a mile in, the road started to basically, expand. They got wider. And basically, people were starting to pass each other. I was starting to pass some slower people. And basically, that's when the real race started. I was actually, getting to the pace I wanted to get at. And that pace was probably about 8 minutes. It was just over 8 minutes at the start. It was like 8 minutes, 10 seconds, from mile 2 on to like miles 8 or whatever. As I was going through, the middle of the race, I was passing people. I was feeling pretty good. I had Strava on, and basically, I was keeping pace with 8:10, which was really good because my pace beforehand was probably around 8:30 to 9. I was really feeling good. I felt like I had a light breakfast, and like I was really feeling good. I felt like I had the energy. I kind of skipped a couple water stations, so there was probably a water station at each mile, and sometimes I would like through like mile 2 to like 8, like occasionally I would like grab a water cup and then like maybe take a sip and then throw it away or whatever. But I was feeling pretty good. I was passing a few people. I was like, I'm feeling like really good. As I'm going through the middle of the race, sometimes I would slow down a little bit. I'd get like longer strides. Like I said, I'd breathe through my nose. So I'd like slow down my pace a little bit just to make sure I wasn't going too fast. But basically, I wanted to basically stay with my rhythm, basically. I didn't want to pass too many people because then you'd get too tired too fast. So that's why I always kept remembering in the back of my mind, after every mile, I'd be like, hey, make sure you slow down your pace. You don't want to get too tired. Just make sure you start breathing through your nose, so then you can kind of slow down your pace just to make sure, you can kind of recover better. And so everything was going well. But then things started to get rough. At mile 9, so my max up to that point was 10 miles, but I had never run 10 miles consecutively, so when I ran that 10 miles, I stopped at maybe like, I started walking at mile 6, and then, quarter of the way into mile 6, I'd start running. That's how I kind of trained for it, but I wasn't like, but at this point, at mile 9, I was running the whole way, so this was the longest I had ever run consecutively, and that probably wasn't a good thing, but I still felt pretty good. But then I remember something that really threw me off. So there's mile markers at every single mile. I remember after mile 9, it was starting to feel kind of long, but then I remember there was a sign that said like 9.9. It was one of the fans that said like, hey, you're really close to mile 10 or something. And I was like, oh, sweet. Like I was still trying to like keep up my, 8:10, 8:15 pace. And then I remember it was just between 9.9 and 10. That 9.9 sign was actually a lie because I looked on Strava and it wasn't, because I knew, because like after 9.9, I knew after like 2/10 of a mile, I was like, this is definitely longer than like 2/10 of a mile. I mean, 1/10 of a mile. And it turns out it was. That was probably like 9.5 or something. And so it started to feel longer. Like it just got so long. And once I actually hit mile 10, I was starting to feel really bad. Like I was like, oh man, like this is going to be a struggle after I hit mile 10. So somewhere between mile 10 and mile 11, there was like a water / Gatorade section. So it might have been like at mile 10 and a half. And at that point, my pace was so slow. I mean, it was starting to get down into like, to the 9:30, 10-minute pace. And I was really feeling exhausted. But what I saw like earlier in the race, like, at mile 3 or 4 or 7 or whatever, once somebody grabbed like a water or a Gatorade, they would start walking just to, like drink it and then just to recover. So I figured, I would give myself that excuse. I was like, I'll drink the Gatorade. This time I won't just take a sip. Like I'll actually stop, grab it, and then, actually start drinking it. So I stopped and started walking, like kind of a fast walk. And as I was drinking the Gatorade, I downed the whole thing. Like I didn't just like drink like a sip. Like I downed the whole cup of it. And I remember just thinking like, oh my God, like I can't recover from this. It was terrible because I felt like I literally couldn't start running again. And everybody was like passing me. And I was starting to kind of freak out. So I was walking for maybe about 2 minutes when I finally kind of felt like the Gatorade like kick in a little bit. It usually doesn't kick in that fast, but I kind of like mentally felt like, okay, the Gatorade's going to kick in and now I can start running again. And so I kept running. I ran for about another mile. So at this point I was at mile like 11 and a half. And basically, I knew I was really close. I was really close. But like it was starting to get so long. Like mentally, I felt like, hey, I'm like really close, but my body had never experienced this before. Like it just was telling me like, hey, you need to start walking, or you're going to pass out. It honestly felt like the runner's wall, like I honestly felt like I just could not keep going. And like, again, I started walking like probably at 11.6 or 11.7. Like I started walking again. And it was bad. I remember, like, I was getting close to mile 12. And that's, like, the stretch. Like, the last mile was when, like, people started, you got to the part where, like, people started cheering. That was probably, like, the last half mile. But I remember a guy had passed me. He was, like, an older guy. And I was, like, walking. And he was, like, hey, dude, you're really going to let me beat you? Like, I'm, like, 60 years old. And I just remember feeling so bad. And I remember he also said, like, hey, everybody's, watching you, this last mile. You don't want to be like the only guy walking. And I was like, so I really had no choice. Like, I like started running again. Like I passed the mile 12 sign and I was just feeling that last mile from 12 to 13.1. It was literally the longest mile of my entire life. It was just, I couldn't even describe it. It was like the most painful, like 8 minutes of my life, like 8 to 8:30. Like my pace was going super slow, but I knew I couldn't stop. And, as I hit this turn, I wanted to like stop before like this, like I wanted to start walking before this turn, but I heard all these people, were cheering. And I knew as I was going to hit that turn, everybody was going to be watching. So I felt like that last like half of a mile where everybody was watching, I was like, I can't stop now. Like I have to just keep running. And I kept running and my legs actually started to feel a little bit numb. And I remember I was just like, I couldn't think, like I was just running. And it might have been like a little bit more adrenaline from like the crowd or whatever, but it was just like, I was still running super slowly, but I knew whatever I did, I just couldn't start walking. And then as the final turn hit and I saw the finish line, it was like the last 1/10 of a mile. Normally I would sprint at this point, but I literally just didn't have it in me to like sprint. I literally just kept running at the same pace. And maybe like as I was like 100 feet away from the finish line, I kind of like dashed through it or whatever, I put my arms up or whatever, for the camera. I passed the finish line and I was just absolutely exhausted. Like I literally couldn't think. I couldn't do anything. Like I was just like, I really felt like I couldn't even stand. But like as I passed the finish line, there was this lady past the finish line was like, she was like, hey people, you got to keep it moving. We got to let the other people finish. So basically, I didn't even have any time to like think or stand. I just had to keep like walking slowly, which is probably a good thing. That's what you should do after you run. But in this case, it just felt like I just wanted to fall over. And like the only thing keeping me up was like the people around me, because it was still pretty crowded at the finish line. So after I passed the finish line, I was given the medal. I was also given a hat. I remember there was like just like people like passing out like Cliff Bars, cookies, chocolate milk, water. I remember I actually like grabbed like the Cliff Bar and the chocolate milk and the banana, but I remember I missed the water station, so like I had to like walk all the way back to the water station, and I was completely exhausted. I just wanted like some water. I remember I just wolfed down that Cliff Bar. I just sat down and I was like, I just can't. I just almost couldn't think. I was like, this is insane. Like I feel like I'm gonna pass out at any second. Luckily, the food definitely helped, and definitely the water. You definitely need water and Gatorade. It's really clutch in that situation. They also had like free pizza, which was nice. But basically, I was just so exhausted. And I remember I was just so sore. It was like harder to walk. It was really hard to just like walk back to like my car and like, to hold all the things that I had. It was definitely tough at the end. But one thing that really, made me happy was I went to the results booth and they said I completed the marathon in 1 hour, 50 minutes and 44 seconds. I did meet my goal, which was to do it under 2 hours. So I was happy about that. Obviously, my 10K split was like 50 minutes, which was like the halfway point. But I ended up with 1 hour 50, and 44 seconds. Obviously, I slowed down quite a bit. Like my pace, I probably added 20 seconds to my pace the last half. And that was mainly due to like between mile 11 and 13, where I was like walking like parts of it. I felt like it was really worth doing. I mean, it was just such a rewarding experience, kind of seeing the pictures of you afterwards. You kind of look ugly, but, you're kind of proud of yourself. And when you, like, actually meet that time goal, it's awesome. And when you get, the t-shirt and the hat and, the medal, it makes it feel worth it. Like, you actually did something that was worthwhile. And that, to me, is kind of, like, the biggest reason why I did the half marathon, just to, like, to challenge myself. I knew, like, going into it, I could do it. It's just like, how I was going to feel at the end. And trust me, in that moment, like towards the end of the race, the last couple of miles, you're not going to feel good. You're going to feel like crap. You got to push through. And like in my experience, I felt like, I wasn't happy with myself having to walk, during like the last 3 miles. But I still managed to made it through. And, I was running at the very end, which is what I definitely wanted, because I definitely wanted to see myself running, in front of everybody else. So I don't know. It was a great experience. So if you're ever, interested in running, if you do actually run, I do highly recommend doing a half marathon, because in my opinion, it's definitely worth doing. And I think you guys would enjoy it if you did it. So thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I will see you guys next time with another video. Probably not about running, but thanks for watching. Bye.